also too means that I feel like accurately depicts how I felt about money and graduating. Even though I had multiple degrees, it was a lot. So although you do end up making more money, typically what happens is you have to spend it on more things, right? So I graduated, and my mother was like, oh, you need to get off my phone bill, you need to get off my insurance, like this is all you now. And so I was making more money, but I had a lot of other places where I had to go. And so there was a couple of days, where I would check my bank account and be a little surprised at my balance. And so this is kind of how I felt those times. Yeah.
I mean, how did you deal with her saying, like, you got to get off my account? Like, how did she come to you, and then what was your reaction?
So my mother was very abrasive with this process. So she told me I had till January 1, 2015 to get off her insurance because this is how my mother is. And I was like, okay, well, I'm gonna do it. Like, I have till January 1. And so I was doing it on December 30th because I was a chronic procrastinator. And she was like, get off right now. And so she kicked me off. And I think like New Year's that Eve, I didn't have, my phone wasn't coming when I was living. But the way that I dealt with it is like, so the job that I had, one of the benefits were that I got a discounted phone bill through Sprint. It wasn't a huge discount, but I was able to get that discounted phone bill. And which is another good point, like shopping around for your phone plans is a thing that adults do. Like, so don't be afraid to get on Cricket, Metro PCS, like the phone is the same, like whatever you need to do, the phone's gonna ring. They're typically on the same carriers anyway. And so I was on Sprint, and I also, my bill was like $60 because I also negotiated them. So don't be afraid to also call Sprint, Cox, Comcast, and be like, this bill's high, what can we do? So gotta get creative, figuring that out. Like I said, it depends on how much money that you make getting out of school. Some people let you stay, some parents will let you stay on their bill, which is nice, appreciate it. My mother was not one. She told me how to slide, so it really just depends on like your experience. So, did that answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so money management. We have, like I said, this is a very like abbreviated slide. Like I could go into depth, way more in depth about all of these things, a lot going on. But when you when you graduate, just that feeling of like it can feel a little overwhelming. So this is like dealing with student loan debt, which I've heard a lot about, which is great. Did not hear a lot about that. Student loans, or having to buy a car, like managing having a larger income. Hopefully you have a larger income. Trying to figure out what your next step is. Even if you do like go home for a little bit, like trying to get yourself up to have like a nest egg to be able to get out. It can be a little overwhelming, but if you stick with some of these financials now, then you'll be setting yourself up for like a good foundation. So when I was in school, I would get like refund checks. Anybody get refund checks?
Mm-hmm.
I get refund checks?
They drop Friday.
Yeah, so well, you're getting it on Friday. Oh, so this is right on time. Okay, great. So I would get refund checks, and I would just be like, oh, I'm going on spring break. Like, we're about to go to homecoming. I'm about to be cute. I'm about to be fly. And like, what I didn't realize, like that money was borrowed money. Like I was paying interest on that money. Like that was not just my money to just have. And had I started practicing budgeting, saving, stuff like that, then I would be in a different position than I am now. And so y'all are young, most of y'all are sophomores, juniors, and y'all have some time to kind of establish a lot of these good habits early, which will help y'all when you graduate out of Clark and go to grad school, whatever else the next path is for you. Because everybody right now typically has like kind of a similar state. I mean, we all come from different backgrounds, but we're all kind of, in college, have a very similar start, and when you graduate, people go in different directions. But you can get the basis, that'd be really good. So money management. So we just talked about it, but yeah, so it's I know when you're another good way, like when you're in school, to kind of get a head start on the student loans, which I feel like that's what I hear about all the time, is to pay off like your interest now. So there are subsidized, unsubsidized loans, and if your loans are unsubsidized for whatever reason, the day that you take out that loan is accruing interest. And so compound interest can be a beautiful thing when it's working for you, but not a beautiful thing when it's working against you. And so when you are on the borrower side of it, then you are accruing interest, and it can quickly, like, let's say you borrowed $100, you graduate, it might turn into $140, $150 as you go over time. But if you pay the interest, and the interest might be a couple dollars or whatever a month while you're in school, then it'll help kind of alleviate some of that snowball effect when you graduate. So it was a cool app that'll help y'all do that too. And like I said, everybody who registered on the iPad will receive like a list of them. So I have an app for everything, right? I have an app for staying on social media, to have an app for losing weight, to have an app for savings, and I'm the app queen, so I have like a list of over 30 apps I'm gonna send to y'all. All those resources, and they're currently are free, or if you, the links that I send you will they're either free or they'll give you like a promo code like for a free $5 or $10. So y'all make sure y'all check that out. But it's good though. So I'm glad that some of y'all have started budgeting, started considering savings and stuff like that, because like this is really the foundation of what your like relationship with money will be going forward. So that's budgeting and saving. Aside from that, there's different types of budgeting. So she mentioned that you write yours down, which is excellent. I personally use an Excel sheet to manage like my funds, and the method that I use is like the 50-30-20 rule. Anybody heard of that? No? Yeah, kind of. Yeah, so the 50-30-20 rule of budgeting is kind of where you look at all of your income. And so this, because y'all are in college, y'all, this is just like, prerequisite information. Y'all may or may not be paying rent or bills or anything. Anybody stay off campus? Okay, so you might understand. Yeah, I stayed off campus for 2 years as well, so I had to learn real quickly. 50-30-20 rule, like I said, how I kind of base my budget and my client's budget is to be able to know. You ever heard of like the phrase like, "Oh, you're living beyond your means," right?
Yeah.
And so like, how do you know if you're living beyond your means? Like, I don't really know. So this will kind of help you figure it out, right? So let's say you take home $1,000, hypothetically, whatever. Ideally, 50% of your take-home income will be dedicated for essentials. And so that means talking about rent, bills, credit card payments, student loan debt, things that you have to pay, 50% or less, ideally. And then 20% should be allocated towards savings. So I'm a really big advocate of paying yourself first. So if you get paid, nobody should get paid before you get paid. I don't care if you have, like people ask me all the time, like, oh, should I worry about paying off my debt or investing or whatever else? First, you should do is pay yourself. Like, I don't care if it's $5, $10, like, get in the habit of being like, I work for this money, like, this goes to me first. And so, with that, you said 20% ideally around would be how much you would save, and then you could do 30% of, like, your personal expenses. So that's like going out to eat, getting your hair done, going to festivals, homecoming, anything that's, like, personal, 30%. And sometimes you can switch back and forth between 20, 30, it really just depends. But that's like the basic structure. And that'll kind of tell you like if you're living beyond your means. So if you see that you're essential, y'all graduate, you have like a good job, right? You could be making $100,000 a year, and that's how you're taking that back home. But if $70,000 of that is your expenses, you're living beyond your means. Like, so, if you miss a couple of paychecks and you're gonna be hurting, you're living beyond your means. And so that's like what that means. It gives you like a tangible way to kind of quantify it with that budgeting style. So you'll be able to see like, oh, okay, when I graduate, I'm taking this apartment. Maybe I need to get a roommate or something because this is gonna put me beyond my means. And don't have credit. Like, you have a clean slate, which is good and bad. Like, people who don't have credit, if you were to go out and try to buy a house or a car, they probably doesn't even know or give you a really high interest rate. But because you're starting at zero, you have the opportunity to change that for the positive. And if you do already have credit, you have the opportunity to continue to do well, or make a change if you feel like you need to. So this is the way that credit scores are calculated. And so I just wanted to put a disclaimer report. This is the percentage breakdown, which I'm gonna get into in a minute. But as a disclaimer, your student loans, which I said majority of people who have in this room right now are not negatively nor positively impacting your credit score unless you're already making payments. So people are like, oh, I have credit, I have student loans. Not really. You're kind of like, if you were going to get a loan, they probably would just put you at like, oh, don't have credit. So it's not really a builder. Also, rent, bills, phone, medical, none of these things are on your credit until they are in collections. So you might say, oh, I pay my rent every month on time, like I'm good, I'm building credit. No, they don't report to the credit bureaus unless it goes into collections if you don't want it to go into collections. That's a little tidbit for anybody who just to kind of clarify what goes on your credit report versus what doesn't. And so this is how your credit scores are calculated. So we all know credit scores are like a super important number that everybody talks about. Oh my God, I need good credit, blah, blah, blah. And this is how they figure that number out. So out of 100% of how they calculate it, 30% is for credit utilization. So credit utilization is how much of your allocated funds that they give to you on your credit card that you use. So let's say you go out here, you get a credit card, and they say, oh, you have a $1,000 spending limit. If you use $999 of that credit card, that's going to take your credit utilization down. So ideally, if somebody gives you a $1,000 spending limit, you would never want to put more than $300 on it, or it would negatively impact your credit score. So that's the big thing for folks. People, just because they give you the money doesn't mean you should use it. And it's another reason why every year you should go back and like ask to get your credit limit raised. So I know every year I call my bank and I'm like, oh, can I get my credit limit raised? Not because I want to spend more, but because it increases my credit utilization, which as you can see is like a really big part of how they calculate this score. So you can be real strategic about this and kind of play with it and figure out how you can get your score higher. Yes.
Does that, because now for my credit card, I have it for a credit union. Does that same thing apply? So like when I call like credit union, do that same thing with them?
Yeah, so anybody who's issued your credit card, they'll give you a credit limit, and you can call them and be like, if you paid on time, you know, consistently, be like, hey, can I get my credit limit increased? Because every year you build more credit history, and so they can just say yes or no. But typically, they say yes if you've done your payments on time, and that's going to increase your credit score over time. I don't know if I use this for real. Y'all have any other questions?
All the pretty girls in the world, but I'm in this space with you. Call it out the lines again to find my fire will fade with you. Heart it will stay with you. Fly great escapes with you. Oh.